I'm here with Rabbi Scheinberg. I appreciate so much you taking the time to be with us this morning. You've had a very different week than we originally thought you were going to have because of what happened on your property Wednesday, I believe.
Correct.
For those that are listening that do not know what occurred, your property where the temple, the synagogue is, it's a Jewish community right here, isn't it? It was residential and a school and a...
Right. There's a bit of an enclave which is primarily Jewish, and the entrance to our synagogue property and to this enclave of private property was vandalized, and it was vandalized with all types of hate graffiti. The graffiti was swastikas, general KKK, and things. One car was vandalized and written spray painted Jew, and other things were spray painted with offensive, anti-Semitic, and also anti-racial slurs. But when we found that out, of course, we called police and media, and because we wanted to flush out whoever did this.
Yes.
We knew that it was such an aberration, that it was not San Antonio, it was certainly not our neighbors, it was certainly not our community. It must have been whomever we wanted to put pressure on and getting them stopped. So this would be something that we would, that in its very beginning, we would be able to stop. Because if it's not stopped, this time it was spray paint, and there was a rock, a large boulder, that was smashed, that was in the car, but then it could be more serious. So that is what happened, and the good news. And
Yes.
From bitter comes sweet. The sweet that came from the bitter was, first of all, there was a community that was so supportive, the religious community, the civic community, the law enforcement community.
Yes.
There was an outpouring of concern, of love, of support, of encouragement. But of course, personally, to have Pastor and Diana stop whatever they were doing and come just to be with us. It so happened that there was, at that time, at that very time, there was media already here. So what a wonderful opportunity. But when Pastor called up, and he's coming over, it was to be with us.
Yes.
And he was here for 2 hours. I mean, you're talking about a person who has a schedule, a world schedule. I mean, people from all over the world are calling him, and he took the time, stop what he was doing, to show love and support, and that's what he's been doing all these years.
And that's Pastor John Hagee,
That's
correct?
Pastor John Hagee.
Yes, and there's a wonderful picture of the two of y'all, I see on the desk, on the credenza behind you.
Right, and those moments. Look, there are obviously public moments in which Pastor expresses his love and support for Jews and for Israel. And that's, but the reason I love that picture, because it's a private moment. It's a moment that was a spontaneous moment of our praying together for one another, for our families and for our communities.
Yes.
And that's what that picture is about.
Yeah.
And to over the 34 years that I've been with Pastor, and gotten to, I mean, he's a brother. He's not.
Yes.
He's not just a friend. He's a soul brother, and that's the way we feel about one another.
Yeah. It was wonderful that he just immediately responded and was here, because you mentioned family and community. And even though this is the physical property, he felt violated as well that it had happened to you.
Right, and he said that. And
Yeah.
he said any attack on a synagogue or the Jewish community is an attack on a church or on Christians.
Yes.
And of course, I mean, that is the sense of closeness and that exists. I mean, it is not just organizational. It's
No.
not just. It's way beyond. It is spiritual.
Yes.
It is family, and that's the way we feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so beautifully demonstrated through this horrible incident that occurred.
Right.
But what is interesting is this is a beautiful lead-in for what we were going to talk about, which is Christians United for Israel. You, I believe, have been there with Pastor Hagee from the beginning on that. Would you share some information about that particular organization and as a Jew, what that means to you?
Sure.
And okay.
Even though I was there at the inception of Christians Unite for Israel, I want to also mention that I was there in the very beginning, 34 years ago, 1981, when the Night to Honor Israel was born.
Yes.
When Pastor said that he saw a world arrayed against Israel after Israel had bombed the nuclear reactor at Osirak and done the world a great favor, especially the United States. And everyone was criticizing Israel severely, including the United States. And Pastor said, how could this be? We have just, Israel's done the world a favor.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm going to show support and start the Night to Honor Israel. That's when I first started my friendship with Pastor. 10 years ago, Pastor finally said, you know, he's been the lone voice in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And it's time to see if we could get Christian voices throughout the evangelical Christian community mm-hmm. to come together and to support Israel. And then, of course, so that's how that started. He called about 300-400 of the leaders of Christianity, and not just evangelical Christianity. And we'll see later on that Kufi embraced many other forms of Christianity. And with God, it was a miracle of God. They all agreed to, at that time, to become advocates for Israel, to say openly that they are not proselytizing. Their mission is one, to unite, to support Israel and the Jewish people. It is not a mission of proselytizing, of outreach in a Christian manner, other than to demonstrate their love and support. And first of all, even Pastor recognizes this, that to have all those Christians come together was a miracle in itself.
Yes.
And to come together for the purpose of supporting Israel and the Jewish people, and they all agreed to do that. It was remember at the beginning of our interview, you said that it's a God moment.
Yes.
Well, this was a God moment, and,
yes.
and you could feel the divine presence that had settled in that room, because there was unanimity, there was unity, and of a sacred purpose, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Obviously, as we look at at the administration that we've had for the last 6-7 years, we understand that this is a Queen Esther situation where Jews are being threatened with annihilation.
Yes.
And this is the time. For this time, maybe had God prepared Kufi to be there and to speak on behalf of the Jews, as we see now, with 2,350,000 voices. That's so the fact that it's grown as it has and become international and a voice for the Jewish people in Israel, that is only getting more resounding and more influential. And again, it couldn't have been at a better time.
Sounds like it was God's timing, for sure.
I believe that.
And I think with the horror that happened this week here, that because of that groundwork and everything that had been laid for so many years, it made this moment possibly more doable and strengthening with your relationship with Pastor Hagee, going through that together.
Right, for sure. And this was a moment that was obviously troubling, but comparison to what's going on in the world today, we are faced with God forbid, the two most horrible words in the last century was Holocaust and Hiroshima.
Yes.
And that's what we're facing now. This nuclear arrangement, this deal to have sponsor, the greatest sponsor of terror in our times.
Yes.
To have Tehran, to have Iran have a nuclear capacity to do what it has proudly proclaimed to the world it wants to accomplish. Even Hitler, may his name be blotted out, didn't proclaim it to the world. He did it. But Tehran, the government of Iran, is proclaiming it, and we want to give the United States, the free world, want to be able to enable them. That's a time of great danger to Jews and the world. I never separate Israel from the United States. What is a threat to Israel is a threat to the United States. Yes. And we need now more than ever the leadership of Pastor and Kufay. This is the time.
Yeah, we've got to stand together against the evil that is emerging in our world today.
Right.
With this being, typically San Antonio doesn't have hate crimes that I'm aware of to this degree. Has there been previous?
No, but we just don't know yet the nature of what's happened.
Yes.
By that I mean, we don't think at this point that it is a white supremacist group or a hate group. We think it is the work of some teenagers that have obviously been nurtured in a way that is troubling. However, sometimes when teenagers get high and have emotional problems, they do terribly destructive things.
Yeah.
So that is where we think this is now, because the work of the FBI and Texas Rangers and law enforcement is such that they haven't seen any real, what they call skinheads, white supremacist groups here. So they think it might be some troubled teenagers that have done this. Okay. And if that would be the case, it would be, in a sense, somewhat comforting, because you're right. We don't know about hate groups here in our city. We don't know about white supremacist groups in our city.
Yeah. One other thing in particular that I wanted to ask is, we're in a particular unique season with the fourth blood moon that's getting ready to occur, and the holidays that are the Jewish holidays that are at hand. Will you share about that?
Well, as Pastor has written this very now well written and famous. I understand it sold more than 1 million copies. Book about the blood moons, in which he posits that, quoting from Joel, that there'll come a time in end of days scenarios where there'll be the moon will be red as blood, which will signify the downfall of the enemies of the Jewish people. And so the question is that the blood moons that are occurring now, because they occurred one after the other, are they the signs that we believe God has placed in the heavens for either cataclysmic events, but events that will lead to messianic days? Is that what we're witnessing? And I think the whole point of the book is that it could be. No one is saying for sure. Certainly, we are living in times that could be very, very much the times that the prophets prophesied, especially in Ezekiel 37 and in parts of Jeremiah and that and even in some of the Deuteronomy, Pentateuch descriptions of what might occur. We are in times when, with the nuclear potential,
yes,
where the prophecies, the graphic prophecies of destruction and doom could take place. We hope that that's not the time, and we hope that that could be averted from a Jewish point of view. It could be averted through repentance and return and prayer, and but that was certainly the prophecies we know someday will happen, and so we just question when. And perhaps now we're at least seeing, we're seeing the, if not the fulfillment of the blood moon prophecy, because we've seen the fulfillment of other prophecy.
yes,
The fulfillment of return of the Jewish people to Israel, the ingathering of the exiles, and so we've seen, but we're not. No one is saying that this is Ezekiel 37:38. Not yet.
I know you spend a lot of time in prayer. Is there anything that the Lord is putting on your heart, or Jehovah maybe might be the more appropriate term, about the days that we're living in right now?
So, of course, again, because we are, the Jewish people are, and the world, and the free world. In the free world, America is the great Satan, Israel is the small Satan, according to Tehran. Because we see so much bloodshed and so much potential for cataclysmic, terrible events that can occur. So of course our prayers are always that the world begin to turn to God, to that they have to say to themselves, something is amiss. The secular humanism that was so much part of our intellectual liberal thinking has to be questioned. If we went through a century where Germany was the very epitome of culture and intellect and academic excellence, the great writers of Germany, Goethe and Heine, and the University of Heidelberg, and then 10 years in a decade they turned to beasts. So we have to begin to look and see that maybe it's the idea of secular humanism, that human beings are the arbiter of truth, that's not the case. Maybe there are ultimate truths that God has given us, and we have to re-examine them if we're going to survive as a civilization. And so my prayer is that people begin to think, and to see that the world that we have is a powder keg, and the thinking that we see today is muddled.
Yes.
Our administration and
Yes.
our people, which are to be the experts, the leaders, their thinking is muddled. The idea of the gender revolution is crazy. It's there's where we're turning things upside down, and we have to again have clarity of thought, thinking about return, and about getting closer to the ultimate truths. And that's what I pray for.
Oh, beautiful. Did the events of this week and the Christian community and other people in the city and all coming together, did that give you hope that things will turn around?
Sure. Well, does it give me hope on the international? I always have hope that that is part of being Jewish, and I think being Christian is to have hope and we're working towards always outreach and teaching, and San Antonio is unusual. San Antonio is a special city.
Yes.
I don't know if this is an example of the world today, but if you ask me, do I have hope, and I look at the world, I know that there's nothing beyond the grasp of God, and if we return to God as a civilization, as a people, and I'm talking not only about Jews, I'm talking about Christians, I'm talking about the United States, I'm talking about
Yes.
America and its leadership. It's up if America begins to turn to God through the Bible, and of course I have hope.
Wonderful. That's a word of encouragement. Rabbi, thank you so much for your time today. I know it was very tight to fit me into your schedule, but it has been much appreciated. Thank you.
And thank you for the holy work that you are doing.
Thank you, sir.